Welcome to the Strategic Travel Entrepreneur. My name is Rita Perez. Hello. I've been a travel advisor for over 10 years and am navigating this winding road of entrepreneurship with you. I created this podcast because I wanted to share all the things I've learned from leaders both in and out of our industry that I really wish I would have known way back then. But alas, the important thing is I'm aware of them now, and I want you to be too. Ready for this week's show? Let's jump in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. So nice to have you here today. We have another amazing guest speaker for the podcast today. Her name is Angela Hughes, and you may know her because she does dual roles. She is both travel advisor, travel head of a big travel host agency as well, and she has the Luxury Travel University. So she has so many just insights that are amazing and that help you out. If you're not part of her Facebook group, make sure that you join. But without further ado, welcome Angela to the podcast.
Thanks, Rita. I'm so excited we finally got together. I think we've been planning this for 6 months at least.
Right.
The stars have aligned. So thanks for having me on your show.
Yes, thank you so much. So I know a little bit about your story, but for those who are kind of new to your world, how did you first start in the travel business and then evolve to kind of like being a support, but also a consultant?
Yeah, I feel like I'm a broken record on this, but yeah, I actually started out when I was a kid because my parents owned agencies and managed big agencies, big storefronts in the West. And so it was natural for me to go in junior high and file brochures. And then when I turned 16, I was delivering tickets. And probably at 16, I started writing tickets because we had an air service called Morris Air Service that went to Hawaii and Mexico. And that was owned by the agency owner, June Morris, and then also Dave Neeleman, who owns JetBlue now. So they eventually sold that and started Southwest. It didn't start Southwest Airlines, but helped Southwest Airlines expand and into the West. They bought the Morris Air Service routes and everything. And that was kind of the first introduction of like e-ticketing. So because they didn't have a ticketing system, everything was handwritten. And so my job at the agency, people would buy a package to Hawaii and I'd be writing the tickets. And it was so archaic back then. But looking back now, I'm like, it's amazing. I eventually wrote my master's thesis on the diffusion of Southwest Airlines and did a master's in travel and tourism and geography. And taught in the university system for 6 or 7 years, even taught in 2020 at Brigham Young University as a virtual professor because, the university had gone virtual for COVID and have taught in the community college system in New Hampshire as well. And so I'm an academic as well. And so I've got a big background. Not only did I grow up in the travel industry in the agency side, but I've kind of been through literally since 1984, everything in travel, it's evolved so much. And I think that's what uniquely gives me an advantage in coaching and consulting. The coaching and consulting came out of a burnout that I was having, mid 2015, probably. I was like, I can't sell travel anymore. I hate my clients. I hate my brands. I hate my life. I don't know if I was having a midlife crisis, but I do like the teaching and the mentoring piece. But I didn't want to go back to college teaching, even though I did that brief stint during COVID. But I did rediscover teaching during COVID that I was like, I really do just like educating and training people, but could I do that privately? And and it really evolved during COVID because you can't imagine how many people needed coaching and mentoring.
Right.
And I was really looking for something that there was a lot of coaches just for the masses that run outstanding programs, but there wasn't somebody that was really training people to elevate and scale in the premium and the luxury space. And that's what I'm a pro at. And I was like, hey, it's niched down and maybe we can make a run with this. And it evolved with kind of a fan club online too. And it's become something, bigger than I thought it would be. It was private one-on-one sessions, and now it's a lot more. So
yes, no. And I would say that a big appeal, and especially like for someone in myself who's not necessarily luxury, but the reason I stay around you and I'm drawn to you is that you have that tangible, hard advice. It's not just, you should go buy a cell phone today. This is actually the why, like the why, the how, the brain mentality behind making decisions into your travel business. And I think that's what everybody appreciates too. It's not fluff. You're giving hard up advice. Like, this is actually what's going on right now.
Well, I appreciate that, you're saying that, and you're giving good advice yourself. So, I'd advise everybody to start listening to Rita, because she's on track too. But I appreciate that. And most people, I do come across as quite friendly, but I think a lot of people know me as kind of hardline businesswoman too. And so, well, I don't always have a good reputation sometimes, because I can come across as just like, this is how it is.
Yeah. No, I could see that, but I think you have the mind. And I feel like this is also too, sometimes we suckered into like the glamorous side of marketing, or what we think we should be doing, which are necessary, but they're at different stages of when we're talking to different clients. And I'm specifically talking about like social media. I think a lot of us have been like trained from all the noise that we've heard in the internet world. Focus on social, focus on social, focus on social. When we're thinking about, or if we go thinking about the luxury client, are they on social? Yes, but that's not really how you're going to make your first connection with them, correct?
Yeah, really. I mean, the social piece is so important. When people say they don't want to do social, I'm like, you're really doing yourself a disservice, because you really are going to have touch points with people that could introduce you to people that you want to be connected with in the premium, the luxury space. But the social is just one piece of that whole marketing funnel. I mean, the bottom line with social all around is, I don't care if I have 11,000 followers in my Facebook group, which I appreciate. Thank you, everyone. But the bottom line is, you want conversion at the end of the day.
Right.
And you can spend a tremendous amount of time in social media, in so many different marketing things, trying to glam it up. And we saw so many pop-up coaches and pop-up marketing groups come to be during COVID. And that's solving one issue. I mean, when I sit down and coach people, there are so many issues to diagnose in their systems, tools, processes, business development plan. There's so many leaks of agents that run outstanding businesses that have been around for 20 years. Everybody can use somebody to look in and, a diet coach, so to speak.
Right. And it brings a really great point that we are not, or for the most part, we are travel business owners.
Right.
And being just a travel advisor versus being a travel business owner, it's two separate things. And there's lots of things operationally as a travel business owner that you have to keep in mind, that you're helping diagnose with other people's businesses right now.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue that people have is they come in and they like, I love travel and I plan on my friends' travel. And that great. I love that that's what drew you to the industry, but get out right now.
Right.
That's not enough. That right there is not enough to run a really fabulous business. It worked in the 2000s, and we had lots of business and before COVID. Now you've got to be really strategic. I think now's the time to be strategic and decide what you're going to do as a business owner. It's going to be a roller coaster for years. This is not ending this year. So.
Right. And what are you kind of seeing, because you had that early on, I mean, since your teens, having that exposure to the travel industry, what are you kind of noticing that is still the tactics that work then are still working now in 22?
Yeah. And the first book of the year for my book club in the Luxury Travel University is called W.E.T. And the reason why I chose that is, for me, this isn't the first rodeo per se. It really happened in probably 94, when the airlines cut the commissions. And it really collapsed most agencies. My dad was a vice president. He was out on the streets. I was like, this is the end of the travel agency business as we know it. And the internet, now this is going to date me, but that's when the internet started coming on, Wi-Fi people. And OTAs came on strong. And I was like, that for me was a bigger shock than COVID. COVID shut down the world, but we knew it would eventually reopen.
Right.
We didn't know it'd take 4 years to do so, but There's been, in my mind, in travel, that was one of the bigger catastrophes. 2009 with the stock market drop.
Yeah.
I shot photography for probably 2 years. I wanted to go out and shoot photography and try something new. We couldn't sell travel if you don't have a raging stock market. People don't have discretionary money. And so there's been times where, and of course we weren't completely shut down then, but for people that have longevity, there's been bigger obstacles. This by far is the biggest, but I think the resilience of going through those helped me recognize that this was game time for me. Like I didn't waste a single minute, and I didn't receive any government funding. And a lot of people don't know that my parents closed their agency in January of 2020, which I was an owner. And then I moved it. We refiled a brand new corporation. And so we didn't receive any funding because now we were a new business. Oh, and so when I went to apply for government funding, they were like, sorry, you haven't paid yourself. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? But now I'm in a new brand and in Florida versus in Utah. And I thought, I don't know. I thought things could not get worse at that point. Like here I'm, and then, nobody's in business to help me switch over things. And I need new reps. I need new support. I've got weird commission checks going to an old bank account and a new bank account, and so I had to take a minute and just kind of reassess, like, do I even want to stay in the business now? Because I couldn't have like switched over a family business at a worse time. But now looking back, as I say all the time, the stars aligned, and I feel like it's been the best 2 years. And I feel like it's all mindset.
Yes. No, I agree with that. So kind of thinking about mindset, what's carried you on? I feel like it's a lot having to do with the relationships both in and outside of the industry.
Yeah, relationships are a huge piece of it, but I'll be honest, like I think it's God. Like, I'll give credit there all the time, because relationships are one thing, but when you really have like a emotional, spiritual foundation with something higher than yourself, then you can receive more divine inspiration for what you should do with your life. And mine was a simple thought that came to my mind Memorial Day of 2020. The world was just opening. We traveled back to Utah to Zion's National Park. And I had a thought when I was out there, like, grow your Facebook group again. And it only had 400 people in it. It's sat stagnant for 4 years. I hadn't done anything with it. I mean, I was a busy salesperson before COVID. Didn't have time to really do Facebook. And that was the one thought that came to my mind. And I strictly think that was an inspiration for me, because that single idea to show up every day in that group has led to just bounteous like opportunities and blessings and relationships and friendships and partnerships.
Right.
So,
right.
I get all spiritual on you in this podcast. It's probably, I mean, that's really what it is.
You make me think back. So May of last year of 21, I've always worked full time in the theme park industry here while I was building my travel business. And 2020, as I'm sure with many people, made you reflect on a lot of things. And it had gotten to a point where I was like, something needs to change in my life. Yeah. And so something happened, and I was like, okay, I think it's time to put in my resignation. And I made the decision on lunch break. I'm gonna get a little emotional. I went back in and I kind of like put my arms up, and I was like, okay, I'm giving it up to you. I'm surrendering myself to you. So whatever happened is going to happen, and I'm going to let you do whatever it is that I need to be doing at this time. So that it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I think it is. And I mean, now we brought the podcast to church today. I tell everybody, like, find it. And really that's what it is. I think that you've got to know your why. You've got to know why you're in business now. You've got to know why you do the things you do. It's not enough to say, I love travel. I love putting itineraries together. It's not, and the thing is, all of us have a divine purpose within us, and we all have fundamental passions and talents and gifts that we've been given. And how can we utilize those best as a human being, and then eventually to give back and serve others? I think that's the bottom line with things. And so I kind of always base my decisions on like what my end game is. And the end game really is like to be able to give back, to live a full life with my family, to to be a good human being, to have a relationship with God. And I think when you put yourself on track that way, and you're not financially driven, and you're not, basing decisions just on worldly things, even though we work in a worldly climate, I think that you make better choices for yourself. And I'm happy with the way things have gone. I'm happy I didn't get funding. Now, I didn't understand it at the time. And there were a lot of bowls of cookie dough eaten. I won't lie, I'm not a depressed person, but I went through a stage of just depression for probably about 2 or 3 months, where I just thought, I just don't know where I'm headed. And ultimately reaching rock bottom like that was a huge gift. And I think adversity is key in finding what's around the corner for us. And I appreciate that. No, we're both crying. It's like,
yeah, I know. I was like, oh, this is a therapy session now.
Today, but ultimately I do feel like adversity can become your greatest, gift.
It can. So. Right. So when we're thinking back and that you were called to really put in some effort into your Facebook group, what did that mean for you? You mentioned serving. So how did you best serve the people that were in your group?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I mean, I run a nonprofit called Color My World. And for the last 6 months, the website's been down, but we ran that for 20 years. We've ran humanitarian groups around the world every summer with teenagers. And it was a way I gave back. Like, we probably had 4 to 6 weeks of trips. So programming each week that kids came on and their parents would come too. And I spent about 6 months of my year, like making sure those programs worked. There's a lot that goes into the humanitarian world, making sure, that the programs on the ground, like the money was being used properly. And, we built a school in Pakistan. We had programs in orphanages in Guatemala, in Peru, et cetera. And so COVID shut that down for me. I mean, I could run humanitarian trips if the world's closed. And that was a big piece of my life, like giving back. I felt like a very full person working for free in the humanitarian side of it, more so than I did in the luxury side. And so I was like two people. I was selling luxury and premium products and touting that, and this was pre-Facebook group.
Right.
And also like spending my summers in garbage dumps with people. And And so like, I was very conflicted within my own soul, because like, I really feel like God, if people want to find God, it's in the garbage dumps. That's for sure. That's he's with those people. I've seen miracles there, and then on the other side, I'm the Ritz-Carlton in Italy or whatever, you're just, I was living like two lives, and which was great, because when I think you're blessed with resources, you have a responsibility to give back. So COVID ultimately shut down the nonprofit in terms of the trips. And then at one point our website went down, and I'm still working on getting that back up. I just haven't had the chance. But in the Facebook group, I started connecting with destination management companies that needed help. And I thought, this is something I can do at home free. I can give them free business advice privately, one-on-one, and help them rebuild their businesses. So I worked with a handful of people I won't name that are doing very well right now to rebuild their businesses, just as a way to give back. Like I felt like, I can't like go ring a bell at,
Salvation Army,
Salvation Army or whatever, I can't go to the food bank. You can't do anything local right now. You can't even leave your house, but I could get on Zoom and I could give advice and help people rebuild. And then with the rebuild, came more people to the group and advisors to the group. And we started doing Zoom and started, just lots of different things. And those partnerships became fam trips for people. And and touting, it gave me an opportunity again to get more clients for consulting. I mean, it really saved my soul in a lot of ways. And, it just kind of did. It just evolved from giving back to a handful of people. And
and I want to
bigger than it was,
right. And I want to touch on the fam trips, but before we get into there, the importance of working with DMCs, destination management companies. The Strategic Travel Entrepreneur is brought to you by Mailbox Power. Harness the power to attract and nurture your clients through something many entrepreneurs have forgotten about, the mailbox. Create beautiful custom campaigns and automate annual mailings for birthdays and holidays. And with a pro account, Get access to mailboxes not currently on your mailing list that are just waiting for the travel service you offer. Visit my Mailbox Power affiliate link in the show notes to get started today and support this podcast. I don't feel like very much talked about in our industry because we have like the bigger companies that always have like those marketing dollars to put in, but the DMCs don't. So can you highlight just like what it's like working with a DMC and what the benefit is for your clients?
Well, it's really tricky. And I actually am going to teach a course on this because not every host agency allows people to work with DMCs because they have a preferred supplier model based on the consortia that they belong to. And usually they're not set up to work with DMCs. It becomes the way that they're going to transfer the money. I mean, a lot of DMCs we transfer, like I just sent $40,000 to Jordan today, net. You know, a lot of host agencies don't want to be dealing with that. They want advisors to be putting that on a credit card and, you know, and they don't want to have to process any money, et cetera. And, you know, are the people vetted in the other country? And, you know, so they stick with preferred suppliers from whatever consortia they belong to, which is a fabulous model. And I do too. I just have my whole list of DMCs and I've grown a big business around that because I'm really profitable in the DMC world because now I'm finding people who, let's take for Africa, for instance, that can do an Abercrombie and Kent comparable trip for maybe 25 or 30% less. So I'm winning more because now I can maybe add on 20% commission instead of what I'd get with Abercrombie, maybe 15% or whatever, you know, my rate is with them.
Right.
And so now that middle piece, and what people don't understand is like when you book with a Globus or a Go Away or even an Abercrombie, they have their DMCs on the ground. I mean, they're going to someone there. So there's, you know, Kensington Tours uses a DMC in France and, you know, it funnels down to me when I go with the drive, you know, so people are, you don't know you're using DMCs, but you are because it's marketed under a tour operator, you know, it's right. And there's a lot of protection with using tour operators. And I don't want to like ruin my relationship with the tour operators either. I love the tour operators, fabulous US tour operators, and I'm in business with them. Some places I choose to use DMCs because of the relationship and the one-on-one, and they're there for me. You know, I have a team of people and they've got my back every step of the way, you know, and a lot of it started because I had their back during COVID, you know?
Right. And I think that's a really good point to note also that's the value of using one of us, a travel advisor, especially one that has connections to DMCs, so that they can parse out all the crap that's on Google and you further your client can figure out, should you go with one of the bigger suppliers or should you go with a local DMC?
Yeah. And the thing is, I was a little worried about coming out of COVID, like which tour operators might collapse in the US.
Right.
There's a lot of layers going on here where the money's at. And I wasn't 100% comfortable with even US tour operators. So where people are sometimes not comfortable going abroad with money, I wasn't so comfortable keeping all my money in the United States with a tour operator because just lots of issues the last couple of years. But I think we're back into a safe space with tour operators, and we know who's coming and going. And, you know, and again, that's going to be the model for a lot of people because their host agencies don't let them book outside of that.
Right. Speaking a little bit to like your relationships with the DMCs on the ground, your fam trips. So how many fam trips have you put together for travel advisors?
Well, I mean, we've done a lot. I mean, let's just talk 2021 because I've run FAMs before. And this was the interesting thing. Like, you know, this again was a program that was already kind of in shape. I mean, I was doing private consulting, I was doing teaching and things on the side. I think COVID just gave it a name. I just gave it the name of the Luxury Travel University. And so then it became more of a brand, so to speak. So everything kind of looks like it evolved like last year, but it was really in the works and maybe just didn't have a nameplate on it. So we've done fam trips in the past, but last year we probably ran 5 or 6. I mean, I was in Africa 7 times last year. Yeah. And we've got big ones coming up this year. We've got Egypt in 2 weeks. We're going to have one of the Maldives. We've got one coming to Portugal with Salgaras Vacations out of Boston. We've got a South Africa that was postponed. It was supposed to be this month. Yeah.
So
So this year
when
we're going to have a few less because now I'm running out of
Okay.
time and I've got business groups going. But yeah, it's turned into kind of an influencer role too. Brands are now coming to me asking me if I'll host, where before I was setting it up, doing things. Now I've got the brands asking me to host.
When someone goes on a fam with you, what can they expect? Is there training? I'm sure that there's one-on-one conversation. So
Yeah, last year we were doing a lot of one-on-one conversations, but the feedback was that people want more formal training. So starting with this Egypt fam, there will actually be some sessions. I'll be doing a training or two, and then we've got Jennifer doing one on, expeditions and so forth. That's a specialty with her. And then of course the vendors doing training as well. We'd love to throw in some photography because, for several years I shot photography.
Yeah.
For the news. And so, I've got a whole side of that has yet to be exposed.
Yeah. No. And I was going to say, like, getting able to capture those in-destination photos, not only of yourself, but also like in a group setting, helps to market yourself and market the types of trips that you want to be selling.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people, everybody's situation is unique in travel. And so it's hard to train people in a group setting because you have people that are entry level coming in. You've got people that have been around for a long time. You've got people that wrote tickets by hand like me, and they're not techies, or they don't want to use an app, or they don't want to be on Facebook. Or I talked to an advisor yesterday who sells 2 million. She's like, don't try to train me on social media. I don't want that. And I thought, okay, well, maybe you're missing a piece there, but that's not your jam. Okay. Let's find other methods. And so you've got all these different personalities. It's like having children.
Right. No, and that's like doing some one-on-one work with myself with the industry. It's like, okay, everybody is so different. And I think like that's important to note also, is that you don't have to be an Angela, you don't have to be a Rita, you have to be whatever it is that your goals, whatever you're in this travel business for, you have to do it for yourself and align with yourself, because everything is not going to work for you. Just like whatever I'm doing isn't the same that Angela is doing, isn't the same that Bob down the street is doing.
And I think the best thing to remember, Rita, and you just said that, is like people are buying you as a person. When they're buying coaches, they buy you. There's a million business coaches out there, and all of the coaches teach some of the same things. I mean, there's only so much to social media marketing. There's only so much to landing pages and marketing yourself in a photo and so forth. The bottom line is, I think that you always have to remember when you're working with a mentor or coach is they're helping bring out in you what you already know.
Yes.
And that's what's important. I'm not bringing anything new to the table that somebody at Harvard Business School hasn't already said. Either or any of the other travel coaches. I listen to them, and nothing's fundamental that somebody hasn't already said at Harvard. But what we're doing is inspiring you to bring out the best in you that's already inside of you.
I had a connection call a little bit earlier, and that's what we were saying, is that coaches aren't there to tell you to do X, Y, and Z. They're supposed to bring out what you said, what you already know, and maybe guide you a little along the way, but they're not making the decisions. You still are.
Yeah, some people need structure. And I mean, anybody that leaves one of my sessions, whether it's one-on-one or my group sessions, homework and accountability is key, whether you're losing weight or a check-in's key with people. People do better when they have to report back. And so giving people structure and guidelines and helping them see things that they don't see through their goggles is key. But ultimately, they've got to do the work to make the change. And that's why I can't lose the additional 30 pounds. Honestly, because I have to do the work. Nothing that I constantly read is anything new. Don't eat carbs, don't eat sugar.
Exactly.
But we'd all be skinny.
Well, and I was talking to somebody else, and it's that classic saying, you can take the camel to water, but you can't make them drink.
Yeah. And timing is so key. Like for me in my life, like I look back now and I think I probably started this journey of like thinking that I was going to go into a mentor role probably 8 years ago. I distinctively remember I was in Martinique and I was writing down a bunch of notes that were coming to my mind. And then another time I was on a Disney cruise and I kind of framed everything, but the timing wasn't right. I had high school kids, and I have 4 kids, and I had my nonprofit work as well. And I was selling a lot. And how can you really spread yourself out so thin. And I think because the timing was right with my kids leaving to college and COVID and everything, that's when your stars align and you start looking back and you're like, okay, now it's right. You put everything in place before, and now it's the right time. The framework was there, but the timing wasn't right. And I look back and go, gosh, what if I would have done this 10 years ago? I would have 1 million people. But you can't look at that because it is what it is. It's like what you said, people, they come to you when they need you, and they come to you for a reason. And, I think it's really important in the travel industry. You don't compare yourself to other advisors, other coaches, other products, other, where you are is where you are in your journey, and not to look at other people and think, oh, I mean, I could do that too, and go, if I would have started this 20 years ago when I first had the thought, you can't. So it's
yeah, because I
go just forward with where you're at, and you'll be successful where you're at.
Exactly. There's so many times where I wish I had the gall to be able to resign from my position, but it happened last year, and we're moving forward and moving in that direction. So
it worked out. And I remember, because we were just related as Facebook friends, when I saw that, and I thought, wow, bold move. It's I did. I think seeing your post.
I love that
that's interesting. People are dying for a job right now at Disney or where. Yeah, I think you're one of the parks, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No. And I love that you say that word bold, because that for me has been like a big theme. Because I remember going on a fam in the summertime, and I made it a point to talk with the chief marketing officer of the brand that we were with. And I was like, why is nobody else doing this? And I think that's kind of like the differentiator between people who are a little bit further along and people who still have a little bit of a ways to go. How bold are you going to be? And sometimes, I mean, not saying that I wasn't scared doing that or nervous to do that, but you just have to make that decision, clarify your goals, and make that decision, and get out there and just do the thing, whatever it is.
And I loved what I saw that you do that, because I was like, this is fantastic. I remember when you did that, and I didn't know you. Again, we were just Facebook acquaintances, and I was like, good for you. Like, good for you taking a chance on yourself. And I love where you're taking things now. I love what you're doing. I love following you and seeing how you're just growing in your own space and everything. And so you guys keep listening to her, keep following her.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And thank you so much for a great conversation today. I love everywhere where this has gone, all the twists and turns. How can people stay connected with you and get some insights and join your FAMs?
Yeah. So my website, luxurytraveluniversity.com, and then my Facebook group, Luxury Travel Social Media and Marketing.com. And then, of course, I have my host agency, Trips and Ships, Luxury Travel. And I'm always looking for advisors that are in the same mindset. I look for mindset, not sales, but mindset.
Yes.
When I hire. So so that's where I am. That's my space.
Thank you so incredibly much for being here. I am sure, I have no doubt somebody's gotten some sort of value from our conversation today. I will make sure to put any links into the show notes. Travel entrepreneurs, you have a wonderful, wonderful week. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you here next week. Thanks for joining me on The Strategic Travel Entrepreneur. Please subscribe and leave the show a rating on your favorite podcast platform. Oh, and don't forget to take a look at the show notes for important information and links. See you next week.